Hello and welcome back to Paddock and Track, the show where we bring you news on and off the track. I'm Max and I'm joined as always by my lovely co-host Amaan.
What is up, guys?
And today we are back with another episode, a little bit late, but you know what? We're getting it out to you, I promise. This is the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
The final Grand Prix of the season.
Yes, so finally we have made it to the grand finale of the Formula One season.
I think the longest Formula One season, they said.
Yeah, so pretty crazy. It felt like a long season, I'll be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
I know in future seasons they're going to implement some rotation, but this does affect some races that I feel like shouldn't be affected.
Yeah, like Spa.
Spa is one of them. We're gonna see maybe Monaco is next probably realistically. Monza. Like I don't want to you don't want to see these historic tracks going away.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that like a rotation is important because this was a really long season and it's hard on drivers, it's hard on the cars, it's hard on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand a rotation, but like I think you just have to be very considerate of which tracks you're getting rid of. And I suppose you're not fully getting rid of them, but which tracks you're rotating in and out. Because I think, again, a track like Spa is such a historic track that I don't think it's one that you should be rotating. Something like Miami.
Well, then again, it's also the people who run the tracks too, like the actuals, like the sponsors for that track too, that decide, like the actual city.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a big problem too. And a lot of the time, we always talk about this, but a lot of Formula One, it comes down to money.
Yeah.
And so wherever they get the most money is realistically what they're going to keep around the whole year. So we'll see how that goes. But I would say a fairly good race. It was not, I would not call it the most exciting race of the season, but it's all right race.
A few things happened though.
Yeah.
So
looking at the starting grid, we see a front row lockout from the McLaren. So Norris on pole, Piastri right behind him in second. So good qualifying from them, especially because this race decided the championship.
Yes.
And we'll get into that a little later, but this was very crucial for McLaren to get that good starting position. That way, of course it helps you out. But they do have Carlos Sainz right behind them in third place. So, of course, that threat from Ferrari is right behind them.
Well, not as much because we also see Charles Leclerc down in P19.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for him. He had to take a 10-place grid penalty. So, of course, that's not going to help him. But also, either way, he would have qualified P9. So, it's tricky whether he would have been able to make more of a difference. Towards the end of the race, we saw him. Definitely both those Ferraris had pace at this race. But it seemed like the McLarens just ended up having more of this race.
Mm-hmm.
Looking down the rest of the grid, we see Max Verstappen in fourth place. So kind of a middle-of-the-road qualifying. That's, I think, kind of where we're seeing the Red Bull be at this point, especially in qualifying.
Well, he doesn't have to fight for the world championship anymore either,
Yeah.
So it's less pressure off him. So I don't think he went full on either. He could have went a little farther, but I feel like the other three cars ahead of him also had better pace than he did.
Yeah. And then we see a surprise from Pierre Gasly. Fifth place for Pierre Gasly.
Are we surprised though? He's been hot these past few races.
He has. Pierre Gasly's been really changing things up for Alpine. He's been doing he's had some like very solid qualifying performances and very solid race performances.
Yes.
So very impressive from him, especially in that Alpine that's not necessarily fast. Very impressive from Pierre Gasly. George Russell behind him in sixth place, and then Nico Hülkenberg in seventh place. But he had a 3-place grid penalty, so he qualified fourth place.
Yes, very good for that Haas.
Yeah, right. That's a very impressive qualifying from a Haas car that has not been very quick. Hülkenberg and Magnussen too. They've been able to get some solid performances, some solid points out of that car, but this was really, I think, an impressive performance from him in terms of qualifying. Yeah. Yes, the race didn't shake out as well, and the penalty didn't help him. And honestly, it was a silly penalty because he passed people in the pit lane. So that's one that's very avoidable, but still, seventh place is nothing to sneeze at, especially when you're in the Haas.
Yeah, for sure. And then we see Fernando Alonso in P8 and Valtteri Bottas in P9.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a good qualifying. His last race with Sauber, and his, we'll see what happens, but his last race of his full-time racing career.
Yes.
We again, as we're a bit late on recording this, he has been signed now as a reserve driver for Mercedes.
So he's back with the Mercedes organization.
Yeah, back with Mercedes. Although he has been told he cannot produce his calendars anymore. So, that's maybe a loss for him. I don't know.
A loss for him. That's probably the least of his concerns.
Oh, yeah. But so he is staying within Formula One at least, which is good because Valtteri Bottas has been, I think, an important person in Formula One, and he's always quick. So there's, I mean, it's hard in the kick, I think, to be fast. But he's when he was with Mercedes, he was always fast.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So, it's good for him that he's staying around.
Yes.
And then we see Perez in 10th place, but do not be fooled.
But he was still out in Q2.
Yes, he did not make Q3. Thanks to Charles Leclerc, he would have been bumped up a place. So, yeah, Perez. I don't know. We've talked enough about Perez at this point.
It's enough. He'll be gone. So.
And then looking down the rest of the grid, we see Yuki Tsunoda 11th and Liam Lawson, his teammate, directly behind him in 12th. So a good qualifying position for the RBs to challenge for some points. It's tricky to say kind of where they are at this point. I feel like they fluctuate a lot in terms of their performance. They're either like kind of middle of the pack to like terrible. So, this is a decent spot. I think it's a decent spot you can fight for points from. That kind of 11th, 12th position, I think, is a good spot to fight from. But, obviously you want to be higher. But, you make of it what you can.
You also have the 3 bulls, 3 in a row.
This is true. And we see Lance Stroll then behind them in 13th place.
Lance Stroll things. There's nothing to nothing look at here.
And then Magnussen down in 14th. So clearly it was something. Hulkenberg was just on some sort of very good lap because clearly that Haas is not necessarily the fastest car. And then Zhou Guanyu in 15th. So Hamilton down in 16th place. Lewis Hamilton in 16th place. A Q1 knockout for Lewis Hamilton in his final race with Mercedes.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to say, as always, things could be going wrong, whatever.
Yeah, well.
It's not a good look for him on the qualifying. Yes, I think he did a good job throughout the race. He made up a lot of positions. But the qualifying performance is just not there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, especially when your teammate is in P6, 10 places ahead of you. It's kind of crazy.
Honestly, it's kind of a constant theme, I feel like, that we've seen where the qualifying performance from Lewis Hamilton is just not always there. And really, if without the penalties, he would have been 19th place.
Yeah. So
it's like, it makes if I was Ferrari, I would be like slightly concerned at least. Of course we don't know what's going to happen. But it's not a great look.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're Ferrari looking to capitalize on this successful season. But when you're bringing in Lewis Hamilton, a very big decision for sure because you had a very successful driver in Carlos Sainz for your team.
Yeah.
And bringing 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, yes, on paper, it does seem like a really good decision because you're bringing in this really, really accomplished driver. So it's tough to see for Ferrari right now, but only time will tell, and next season for sure we'll definitely see how that pans out.
Yeah. And before we get to the big news of this weekend, go for the rest of the grid. We see Albon 18th, Leclerc 19th, and Colapinto in last. Of course, some of those are due to penalties. Those are all due to penalties, but still. And then the news of this weekend, Jack Doohan in for Esteban Ocon.
It's an interesting case.
In the final race of the season. Yes. Unceremoniously, Ocon was thrown from the car, and they put Jack Doohan in, and they said go.
Wow.
It's an interesting call from Alpine. If it was me, I don't know that I would have made that choice.
I think they did it because Haas wanted to test the car. I think there was a thing where if Ocon needed to be released or something before Haas could take him. Yeah, there was something going on with that.
But I don't see why they couldn't have let him drive the last race. I don't know.
They wanted, I don't know.
I'm sure there's some bigger reason behind it, but it just feels like you kind of just tossed him aside and
what an end to Ocon's Alpine.
Yeah, and the man has been with Renault for a long time. Has he been good? Not necessarily. He's been
he got a podium.
Yeah, he got
two podiums actually.
Well, and he has a race win.
And
with Alpine, but we'll give him out of 10 is kind of my rating of Esteban Ocon with Renault, really with any team. But he's not necessarily been the fastest driver.
Well, he's also not the worst driver either.
Yeah, so but it's like he's been with the team. If nothing else, he's been with the team for a very long time, and it's like I think he deserves a better goodbye than throw him out for the last race and be like, all right, see ya.
Yeah, but at least he has a seat for next year.
This is true. Yeah.
So.
And then we also that's the big news I think of the paddock. Jack Doohan starting in 17th place.
Interesting. Also, he has an interesting contract situation. We can get into that later, though.
Yeah, well, no, we can do that now. His contract is I believe still at this point only for 6 races,
which is interesting.
We know Alpine has now signed Franco Colapinto to be a reserve driver. This looks suspicious.
Well, I think it's just they're mounting a lot of pressure onto Doohan. Well, actually, immense amount of pressure because you see Franco Colapinto, he hasn't done a bad job in his when he stepped in for Logan Sargent for Williams, and so we've seen Colapinto prove himself a bit. So now we need to see Doohan. Can he be the one to step up and be that next driver? I mean, he's been the reserve driver for how long now?
A while now.
A while, yeah. So we know Doohan has been part of that Alpine family, so it'd probably be best if they had one of their own be their driver. But also, it doesn't seem like they have a lot of faith in him either.
No, the fact that they've made the contract so short is weird. And then it feels like they're just paving the way for Colapinto to come in partway through the season.
Yeah,
and it's like I understand that they have proven results that Colapinto can be quick. But they also have proven results that Colapinto is prone to crashing.
Yes.
And you don't know. I mean, of course, yeah, they're theoretically giving him a 6-race trial period, essentially, where they're like, all right, let's see what you can do, Jack. Let's see what you can amount to. But I think you have to give him more time. I mean, yes, Colapinto in his first couple of races was quick and he scored points. But, I mean, I think that you just have to give them time. It's not fair
time is needed.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We're going to see with that. It's a little suspicious to me, again, that they were like, that they're only giving him 6 months on that contract, that they're not giving him a full-length contract, even like a full-length contract that they have the option to take him out, like they did with Ricardo.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't know. It's just weird. We're going to see. And I think it'll be an interesting thing to watch.
For sure.
So then right out of turn 1, there is contact already immediately between Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. It was kind of silly from Max Verstappen. He ended up getting a 10-second penalty.
Yeah, he was moving up the inside and he just then went too wide. Like he pushed into the back of Piastri's wheel, so they both spun.
Yeah.
It was a weird decision by him.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a silly move. We know Max Verstappen is usually bold, especially into that first corner.
Yeah.
But he should have given Piastri more space. There we go. Finally got there. He should have definitely given Piastri more space. Just if nothing else, to avoid the contact and just avoid the penalties.
It's unnecessary. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it only makes it harder for Max because now he has to deal with the penalty. So I don't know. It was kind of a silly move. I thought Piastri's comment afterward was funny when he was like, "Yep, move of a champion, a world champion." That one, yeah. So that was a little funny. But honestly, it was just kind of unnecessary from Verstappen. Again, we know he's kind of bold into that first corner usually, but just a costly mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been avoided for sure.
Yeah.
And then we see Perez. Unsurprisingly, he spun. Great.
It was so sad. Like, okay, I can understand why it. So that the corner after the big long straight. Well, it's not the big long straight. There's the back straight. They go down the back straight, and I can understand why that corner is hard because you're going uphill, so the tires are unloaded.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand why it would be easy to spin, but at the same time, nobody else seemed to have a problem.
Yeah.
No one else seemed to spin, and there was a lot of cars going like basically 3 wide. So I can understand that it would have been tricky, but like at the same time, we've talked enough about Perez at this point. Yeah, I think it's just Perez being Perez.
Yeah.
he just needs to get his act together. I mean, I suppose at this point he doesn't need to get his act together. We'll get into that later. Um, but yeah, I just don't understand.
Like,
I don't know.
I don't know what happened. Yeah, it's pretty bad for him.
And then we see what I thought was kind of the opposite of this Perez run. A very, very good, start and the first couple of laps from Charles Leclerc.
Yes.
This whole race, I think, was a big recovery drive for him, and I think it's important for him to have drives like these because I think it inspires a lot of confidence.
Yes.
Both within the team and within himself. If you look back to races like Canada this season, that was just horrendous.
That was a horrendous.
That was just terrible.
Well, I feel like that was the team more.
It was a bit of both, but it was just terrible.
Yeah.
This race, I think, is very much like the opposite. He started in 19th. He managed to come all the way up
to 12th place in the first lap.
Yeah, and he came all the way up to finish in 3rd place.
Yeah.
So it was very impressive from him, just the drive that he made. Again, he made up 7 places in 1 lap. Yes, it was a little bit of a chaotic lap. You got two drivers out. Well, not out of the race, but like spun around in the first corner, and then one driver spun around later. So yes, there's like 3 free places, but still, I mean, he had a very impressive run, making his way up the field. Yes, he's in a Ferrari, and a lot of these are back markers, but still, at the end of the day, he was fast, and he made his way up the grid pretty quickly.
I mean, we also know that it is not always the car that gets you up there. I mean, we've seen Sergio Perez before, just all the way in last. Can't even do anything else about that. So we know Charles Leclerc has that skill. We know that he has that what it takes to actually move up on the grid and actually inspire confidence in himself to get to that place.
When I think this is important too for Ferrari I think it's important to show Ferrari this, that Leclerc is still fast.
Yes.
Because I think probably Leclerc's worry, and honestly my concern too, is that they'll make Lewis Hamilton the Ferrari guy, like Ferrari's main guy, like kind of how Charles Leclerc has been for a long time. I think that they see Hamilton as the guy for Ferrari, and I just don't think that's Ferrari's best move.
Why would you do that? I mean, if you had this guy, he's Charles Leclerc. You've had him for many years, and he's been the face of your brand for for your Formula One brand for a long time. It's weird to change. I mean, yes, 7-time world champion can get you, but like, you shouldn't do that to Leclerc. He's been doing really well for that. For what they've given him, he's been doing good.
Yeah, so my main concern is that will happen, that Hamilton will become the Ferrari's main guy. And then, of course, it's too early to say what will happen. But and then the thing is just that, so I think this is important for Ferrari to see that Leclerc is still very, very quick, and he can still make his way up. I mean, they're in different cars, so it's harder to compare. But Hamilton started also very low and did not make up as many positions as Leclerc.
Yes.
Yes, Hamilton made up a lot of positions, and it was a very commendable drive from him. But Leclerc managed to make up more positions. Again, different cars, so it's hard to say. And the Mercedes was definitely slower than the Ferrari.
Yeah.
But still, at the same time, this is Charles Leclerc, who is a couple times race winner, but never world champion.
Yeah.
And he is making moves. He's gaining lots of positions, and he's doing a good job for Ferrari.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at. 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship, that was pretty commendable by him. So
yeah, well, and I believe this season even he was up in the 2nd place, and so that this is very impressive from him, just to see that he was able to do it. Or sorry, I misspoke. I was thinking Lando Norris won. I don't know why. Sorry, you're right. Yes, 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship this season. So yeah, again, a very, very strong run from him. And yeah, like you said, 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship is nothing to sneeze at, nothing to scoff at.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely something for Ferrari to remember, that they still have a good driver in Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we also see Perez getting hit by Bottas and then retiring. So
what an end.
Yeah, so Bottas does get a penalty for this, 10-second penalty. We saw like Verstappen getting that 10-second penalty as well. The penalties this race seem to be harsher, and I think that was something that the drivers had been pushing for.
Yes.
Is that the penalties for collisions would be, because in the past we've seen mostly 5-second penalties for collisions.
Yeah.
You get in a crash with somebody, it's a 5-second penalty, pretty much automatically. And now, the idea of the 10-second penalty as a harsher penalty, I think it makes sense, because obviously then it incentivizes you to not
actually race.
Yeah,
better.
to not crash people, to not crash into people. Yeah. And so I think the idea of having the 10-second penalty as a more effective means of stopping crashes, or at least making people slightly more cautious, is I think a good idea. And so so that 10-second penalty being applied to Valtteri Bottas in this case, as he hit Piastri, and then Piastri just kind of retired. The car didn't.
Not Piastri.
Or sorry, Perez.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a lot of P names.
Yeah.
But Perez retiring there. It was kind of sad. Honestly, the car didn't look that bad, so I don't know if there was
I don't know what happened. He just stood there. He's just sitting.
There might have been something more mechanical or electrical, something that, there's a lot of hydraulic things within those cars.
Yeah.
So something that we can't see, but. At the same time, it kind of just felt like Perez was just like, I'm done, and then he was done from there. There
was a virtual safety car after that one.
Yeah, and so that really didn't shake things up too much. It helped Leclerc again with making up some positions, but at the end of the day, it's like it was kind of it kind of felt like the correct end to Perez's career. And again, we'll get into the end of his career now in a moment here, but. Just the retiring and just kind of being done, it kind of felt right. It felt accurate.
The way he went out. I mean, he just went out sad. It was not great, and it's not just a one-time thing. It's just been
I think at the end of the day, the man was past his prime.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We've seen incredible performances from Sergio Perez.
Yes,
definitely. You cannot deny that he was a good driver,
especially that one comeback win with Racing Point.
Yeah, he definitely has had very, very good performances. He was the one of only 2 people who managed to beat Max Verstappen in 2023.
Yes.
So yes, he has been fast, but he's past his prime, and I think it was time for him to go.
Yeah, I mean, also it's not that hard to win in a rocket ship.
Yeah,
we're talking about that car. So
yeah. If you want to go back to 2023, it's not. Yeah, you're right. It's not. It didn't seem very difficult to win in that car.
Yeah.
So. It felt like the correct end.
Yeah.
To Sergio Perez's career.
Yep. And then we see Piastri bumped the back of Colapinto, and he also got a 10-second penalty for that one.
Mm-hmm.
So again, with another 10-second penalty. I don't know what damage there was, but Piastri did pit.
He had flat spots all over his tires, I think.
Oh, okay.
And so when you lock up the brakes like that, the tires get the big flat spots on them, and then either it usually the biggest thing is then you kind of pick up like some sort of vibration, or like you feel it. I think when you're driving, because there's a little flat spot on the tire now, and so it's beneficial just to pit and change those tires.
Okay.
So that was good, but a very early pit stop for him. It seemed to work out reasonably well. Some people were reporting that the hards were not great, but Piastri seemed to be doing okay on the hards.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing like stellar. But, he was doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think you have to still consider that it's his second season in Formula One, and he's, he did very, very well this season.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's something that I forget a lot of the time, just because his performances are just that good.
He finished 4th place in the driver's standings.
Yeah, right. And so you have to consider that, this man is fast.
Yes, he is.
At the end of the day, and it's only his second season. We're going into his 3rd season here, and I'm excited to see what else he has in store.
Me too.
And then looking at the rest of the race, so from the incident with Piastri, Colapinto did pick up a puncture, which kind of affected his race, but honestly, it didn't matter that much, because was he going to score points?
No, because he retired
Probably
later
not.
for a power unit issue.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate for Colapinto. He did eventually have to retire for a completely unrelated issue. And again, that I think was a sad and undeserving end to Colapinto's at least time with Williams. Again,
he'll be fine.
As we said, he's going to Alpine, but
he'll get another seat eventually.
I think he will. And then we saw Gasly having a very, very good defense against Russell. Like we said before, Gasly has been just doing incredible recently.
Yes.
And this was no exception. This race was no exception. He was defending against Russell in that Mercedes that was definitely much quicker than the Alpine. And he was really holding his own, starting that high up. And that was impressive to watch, I think. Just how good Gasly has been recently.
When are we going to get that Gasly Red Bull reunion?
Honestly, I think okay, I have some thoughts about this, I'll be honest. I think Gasly is now a much more mature driver, and I think he's much more deserving now of that seat.
Okay.
Yes, okay, when he was in that seat, he did bad. Let's be honest. It was not pretty.
Well, not many people did
neither
great
was
in that.
Albon.
Yeah.
And then once they brought Perez in, things got a little better, but like Albon and Gasly both were not great in that seat.
I mean, they're also young guys, too, in those seats. So,
but like, look at Gasly recently. He's gotten podiums. He's gotten very good finishes.
Yes.
And he's been making some really important strategy calls. Even like going back to last season when he got that third place in the Dutch Grand Prix.
Yes.
He's making some very good strategy calls like on his own while he's racing. So that's. I think just the maturity that he's shown and the growth that he has shown since that season, half season with Red Bull, I think he would be deserving of a seat, not necessarily at Red Bull, because I think he's kind of done with the Red Bull family, but a top team like Mercedes, Ferrari. Of course, Ferrari realistically will not sign him, but like a Mercedes type of team, or someone else kind of is able to get into that group. Maybe like a McLaren type of team, kind of a growing team. I think that would be. I think he would do well at those.
Yeah, for sure. And then we see, well, this was a weird one. I mean, not really, but Bottas and Magnussen had a collision. So Magnussen was coming out of the pits, and Bottas just locked up. So when Magnussen was turning the corner, he just went straight into Magnussen, and he picked up like a puncture, and he also his steering just
something in
broke
that car
too,
was
and then
broken.
he had to retire from the race.
Yeah.
So unfortunate for Bottas, his stake
final race with
final
Kick.
stake, it came to an end as well.
Yeah,
So,
which it made sense in terms of stakes season.
yeah.
I feel like all of these retirements are either very deserving or very undeserving. In Colapinto's case, I feel like kind of undeserving. Perez and Bottas, it felt right. Less so because of Perez was because of Perez's performance, but Bottas, it was less so, I think, because of him. I think that car was just terrible.
Yeah.
It was sad. Stake was last in the constructors. They scored one point, I believe,
or 2. No, I think it was 2 points.
I think it was. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was 2 points.
The P9 by Joe in Qatar.
So, yeah, it was a season to forget for Stake, which is most seasons. For that Sauber team.
Well, Sauber's gonna be out soon, so.
Yeah, so hopefully Audi can turn it around.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with them. I'm still very excited for 2026 when new regulations, new teams. Maybe we'll finally let in Cadillac and Andretti. There's been talks. There's been resumed talks. I know it kind of went away for a bit, and I think it's starting to come back. I'm very hopeful for Andretti because I think that could be really, really cool. Just have an 11th team.
Yeah.
Finally, after so long, we've been waiting. I hope so because I think it'll be really cool.
Yeah.
And maybe who knows? Maybe we'll bring back Logan Sargent.
Wow. Yep. Really wishful thinking. Although he did step away from racing. We can get into that later as well. So.
And then Lawson right at the end just retired. The car seemed. I think he probably had a power unit problem because the car was like smoking. Also, it was like rolling away, which felt dangerous, but I don't know. I guess it was fine.
Yeah.
So looking at the final grid, we see Norris on taking the win. And then Sainz and Leclerc right behind him in second and third. So, again, a very good drive from Charles Leclerc coming all the way up to third place. Hamilton in fourth and Russell in fifth. So, again, right at the end, Hamilton able to pass Russell. And, again, a good drive from Hamilton just when you compare it to, like, Leclerc, who will be his teammate next season.
Yeah.
Not necessarily quite as good. Verstappen picking up sixth place, Gasly in seventh. So again, still a good drive from Gasly, picking up solid points. Hulkenberg picking up some points in eighth place, Alonso ninth. Piastri barely making it into the points in 10th place. And then Albon behind him, Tsunoda, and the rest of the grid, mostly unexciting. Jack Doohan, P15, essentially second to last.
And then we had the 4 DNFs with Lawson, Bottas, Colapinto, and Perez.
Yeah, so Ultimately, it wasn't the most exciting race, but it was a good race overall. A good
Yeah.
way to end the season.
It was, and it's been really fun watching all these races for the past year and our first year of the podcast.
Yeah.
And it's been real fun, and we're gonna get into all of our reflections, like season ending.
Yeah, very
things,
soon,
everything
including
our next episode.
our thoughts. Really quick, I'll share on McLaren's taking of the Constructors' Championship.
Yes.
We will share all of our thoughts in the next one, and we will see you then.
Goodbye.